Hello, everyone. It's Phil Jones from Projector Reviews, and joining me is Patrick from JVC. So, Patrick, how are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Dude, I missed being able to hang out with you at CEDIA this year because I knew you had some exciting new news coming, and I really wanted to see it face to face.
Absolutely. We have introduced 6 new projectors. Each one of those is going to have a laser light engine, and they're going to implement our e-shift technology and a new technology called e-shift X as well.
The JVC stuff has always been pretty much one of the leaders when it comes to high-end home theater projectors. And I know that you guys have introduced eShift in the past, and it's nice to know that that's actually coming to all the projectors and a laser. So you guys look, you kind of hit a home run on these particular models. Before we get started, we'd like to thank our sponsors, AV Pro Edge and Murideo, for helping me put on the Fall Projection Summit, where we talk about all the things you need to develop and build a great home theater experience that's centered around a projector. So Patrick, can you kind of go through the models? Because I guess you guys have 2 different series and 3 models in each series.
Right. And the difference between the NZ series that you see and the RS series is just a channel of distribution. The projectors are identical in every way. So we start off our lineup with the NZ7. Now that does 8K eShift, and that same technology of 8K eShift is being implemented now on the RS3000 or the NX9. It's going to give you take a 4K signal in and then give you 8K. This projector is also going to give you 8K input or 4K 120 input. When you step up to the NZ8, you're going to get a little improvement in brightness and a little improvement in contrast. That's also going to give you something called 8K eShift X, which is a new improved type of 8K eShift. And then when you step up to the NZ9, you're going to get the highest amount of contrast, 100,000 to 1 native contrast, and you're going to get the 8K input. You're going to get adaptive frame HDR. And one more thing, all these projectors now not only have that adaptive frame HDR that we've had for a few years now, but it also is going to give you the ability to do HDR 10 plus.
Now, some other things we have to point out about these projectors is the fact that you're getting 8K eShift on all of them, and like you said, BLU-Escent, your laser light source. What is the price on the new NZ7 RS2100?
The NZ7 or RS2100 is going to retail at $9,999.95. So just under 10 grand, you're getting laser 8K eShift and 4K 120p.
So basically, you get a lot of features that were found in the models way above this price point at something that is way more approachable, which is why I am so excited about this unit. Because I was like, man, it'd be great if it had eShift as well as the 48 gig inputs, more for gaming, as we're talking about right now, because all of these PlayStation, Xboxes, and high-end graphics cards. And it would have been awesome if you have the maintenance-free, worry-free reliability of a laser in a home theater projector, because then I can replace my TV completely. And now you offer that at under 10K, which is quite surprising. It actually caught me by surprise. One of the reasons why I've always been excited and I've always loved JVC 4K home theater projectors is because of their LCOS-based imagers, which they call D-ILA. And there's some major advantages to that imaging system, which is found on all of these projectors. Okay, so can you talk a little bit, Patrick, about D-ILA and what its benefits are?
Sure, absolutely. It's actually our LCOS technology. It's direct image light amplification device, and it's going to give us far better contrast than our competitors. And there's a lot of things that go into that as well. You know, the optic system lend itself to better contrast, and but that LCOS technology, that D-ILA, is really what's going to make the blacks black and the whites white.
Exactly, because contrast is basically what really adds detail to the scenes. So when we look at this, these imagers, they are native 4K. This is native cinematic 4K, which is 4096 by 2160. Your consumer TV is 3840 by 2160. This is kind of the 4K that you would see in a cinema, which is almost closer to 17 by 9 than 16 by 9. And this is not done by any type of pixel shifting. This is actual 4K resolution. So the image, it's a very, very, very crisp picture, especially when you add the lenses to it. And then the next thing is contrast. Contrast is what really helps you see those fine details. And let's be honest, Patrick, I see a lot of projectors. I do a lot of projectors these days, and they have these crazy contrast ratings, 2 million to 1, and all these crazy ones. But they're talking dynamic. Basically, turn the bulb on or the laser on, and turn the laser off. The benefit of LCOS is native contrast, correct?
Absolutely. So that's measuring the difference between contrast of one pixel that's black and the pixel right next to it that's super white.
Exactly. And that's what makes stuff pop and stand out and makes and helps you really, really, really see the detail. And there's very few, if any, projectors on the market that can match a JVC D-ILA when it comes to native contrast, which to me is the most important thing. And that's like when you're looking at a star field or you're looking at something like this image that's on this screen, how well can you reproduce that black and white simultaneously, which really makes it truly, truly stand out.
The NZ7 is industry leading, and that has the lowest contrast. So with just the NZ7, you're getting 40,000 to 1 native contrast ratio. When you step up to the NZ8, you're getting 80,000, and when you step up to the NZ9, you're getting 100,000 to 1 native contrast.
And now when you add the laser and the ability to dim it, this dynamic contrast is just completely insane. And as you mentioned, their entry-level model in this lineup, the NZ7, is industry leading when it comes to contrast. Nobody can match that, let alone the big boy at the very top of their lineup, which is the NZ9. The other thing is, what do you do with all of that contrast and the brightness and everything else? How do you get the most from it? SDR material is easy to reproduce. Most projectors can easily do all of the brightness range, the complete brightness range of SDR content. It's 0 to 100 nits. So if your projector can do 20 or 25 foot lamperts on your screen, you're way beyond that when you're talking about looking at SDR content. So SDR content should not be much of a challenge for a very good projector like a JVC. The hard part is just getting the black levels on screen, but it can easily, most projectors out there can easily do the brightness. HDR is where it becomes quite challenging because the brightness information and the color information in HDR content can far exceed the capabilities of not only a projector, but a flat panel TV. Most flat panel TVs can't even reproduce it. So now we have to start doing things like tone mapping. And tone mapping is basically figuring out a way to creatively squeeze as much of the color and brightness information as possible into the capabilities of a display. But tone mapping is a challenge, and every company does it different. It's like the Wild West. One of my favorite ways, techniques of tone mapping is done by JVC. And everybody who has seen it has been absolutely amazed. And a big part of it has to do with their frame Adapt HDR with Theater Optimizer, which, Patrick, you guys introduced last year, correct?
Absolutely. It's evolved. I'm sorry, the Theater Optimizer was introduced last year. Frame Adapt, the original version, was introduced 2 years ago as a free upgrade to people that had JVC projectors.
And what
every year we've made an improvement on it.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to point out. You could have went out and bought a NX5 or NX7 last year, NX9 last year, and it had the ability to utilize the metadata that was found in the material, the static metadata. Then they added the ability to the projectors for it to read the metadata itself to make a better educated decision, and then they added Theater Optimizer. So one of the benefits of being able to read the signal itself is, if you look at HDR content, most HDR10 content, which is the #1 way that HDR is delivered in your home, the metadata is static. It's basically information about the brightest pixel in the movie and the brightest frame in the movie. So that one frame you can maybe optimize. But most movies have bright scenes, dark scenes. So static metadata really does not give the projector enough information to make a very good educated decision. With Frame Adapt HDR, you can read it frame by frame and scene by scene, correct, Patrick?
Yeah, absolutely. That's switchable. You can do it frame by frame or scene by scene.
Yes. So if you go from a movie that has a very bright scene to a nighttime scene, the projector will change its parameters to get the most out of it. Or Patrick and the guys, Rob and Chris, have these little torture tests. So they'll say, play the Meg, which is a super bright movie, and then and notice how the skies aren't blown out. On every other projector and pretty much every other TV I've ever seen, it's completely blown out. And then they said, oh, and then now let's go look at something like Blade Runner, the new Blade Runner, and it's super dark. And guess what? You can still see details in the shadows, and it's not too dark. So being able to quickly adapt means for a customer, it's hands off. You can just basically set the machine up, and you're not finding yourself writing the contrast and HDR adjustment settings every time you switch from movie to movie or scene to scene, which I think is really, really cool. And you guys have won a bunch of awards for this, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And this year we're adding HDR 10 Plus to the lineup. So if you don't want to use the JVC frame adapt and you don't want to use our intelligent processing, you can use the metadata that's encrypted with HDR 10 Plus, and it'll optimize that according to the engineer of the video's preferences.
On top of that, there's other parameters. When you look at a projection system, there's two other things you have to consider: the screen and the room, and of course the projector status. So you guys have this thing called Theater Optimizer. Can you talk about that?
Sure, absolutely. It essentially fine-tunes the projector for your home theater, for your environment. So it's going to take information about the screen size, screen gain. It's going to know throw distance due to the zoom level, and it's going to monitor itself for its light source and give you the optimum amount of brightness and darkness without crushing anything.
These projectors now have lasers, so the lighting condition is even going to be even more stable. It does change along as time goes along, and whether or not you are where your lens is zoomed in, or whether you're in like wide zoom or tele, that has an impact on the brightness of the projector as well as whether you have a high gain screen or a low gain screen. Giving the projector all that additional information just means better educated decision. I know exactly what's going on in the scene or in the frame. I know exactly what my status is and the type of screen I am being projected on, so the projector can make more precise mathematical decisions, which is one of the reasons why your HDR on these projectors look really, really, really good. The next thing I want to talk about is laser. Can you talk a little bit, Patrick, about the benefits of a laser before we even get into the fact that you now have lasers in your projectors?
Absolutely. There's definitely a benefit with brightness across the board. There's a benefit with contrast a little bit. That is a contributing factor with contrast when using laser, and also giving you a very stable 20,000 hour to half-life at full blast. So if you're cranking it wide open and you're watching movies, you have 20,000 hours before we really consider that you're going to be at half-life for the light output.
It's just that peace of mind, maintenance-free operation. Once you get your projector dialed in, it stays dialed in for a pretty long time, and you don't have to worry about how often you use it. Because we have a JVC projector in one of our theaters at the company that I work for, and we love the thing, but it's got a bulb in it, Patrick, and I'm the one that turns it on and I'm the one that turns it off. And people say, can I use it when you're not there? And I go, no, because you'll forget to turn it off over the weekend and the thing will be on the entire time and you're wasting my hours. And I got to think about that kind of stuff. But with a laser, it's like a TV. Turns on, it's almost as fast as TV. Turns off almost as fast as TV. And I don't have to worry about those types of things. And that alone is a huge, huge, huge value. Plus, you can more precisely regulate its light. So when you talk about dynamic contrast, there's a benefit to a laser light source as well. Now, there's a lot of projectors out there that utilize a laser light source, but getting good quality light from a laser light source actually is not that easy, which is why many premium projectors under 10K still utilize a bulb. So Patrick, can you talk a little bit about your BLU-Escent technology that's found in JVC projector?
Absolutely. Ours, it's a 3-chip system. So essentially we're using a BLU-Escent laser light, and that's hitting a yellow phosphor to generate the rest of the color spectrum. That's different than a single chip system. First of all, unfortunately, it reduces, there's a cost of light output when you do a 3-chip system. When you have a single chip DLP laser projector like our NZ3, for example, it's a lot less expensive to build that. It's a single chip, and it's a lot brighter in that frame of reference, but you don't get the contrast levels, and you don't get the control, and you don't get the color gamut that you're going to get from a 3-chip system.
The way that you increase contrast, if you want to double contrast, you can do it 2 ways. You can take the brightness from 2,000 lumens to 4,000 lumens, or you could take the black level from 1 nit or 1 lumen to half a lumen. The fact that so as JVC's black level gets better, you get actually more contrast. The contrast pops. That is why if you look at an OLED, which is nowhere near as bright as an LCD, the colors and the details just pop. And that has to do with the black level. Think of black level, like I'm an audio guy too. It's like silence for music. It's your bass. The quieter it is, or the blacker it is, the more dynamic the sounds or your colors or stuff like that. The other thing that I want to point out is you will see higher brightness measurements on a lot of projectors, a lot of other laser based projection systems. But like he said, color reproduction is important. And many of those projectors, you'll be lucky to get half of their rated brightness once they're calibrated, or you're using a fairly accurate preset picture mode. When you look at a projector like these JVC ones that are powered by BLU-Escent, the rated brightness is very close to its fully calibrated brightness. So you're getting more of it. So what is the big guy? The big guy's 20. How many?
The big guy's 3,000 lumens.
Exactly.
And that's partially because of that 100mm all glass lens assembly that's only available on that unit.
Yeah. So I've seen projectors that are rated way higher than that, 8,000, 9,000 lumens. But by the time I put them through CalMan and made everybody not look like green Martians, the thing's putting out like 2,500. So a lot of times people get stuck on that brightness measurement. It's not about what's on the sticker. It's about what you get to use on screen accurately. And that's one of the things that I like about JVC is they could have just cranked it all up to make it look bad to get a big fancy number, but they didn't do that. So you really get to utilize all of that brightness, and the contrast just makes it look a lot better. So that's something that that's one of the things I want to stress. That's the reason why people look at it and go, wow, this is an expensive projector and it's only this bright. No, you'll be amazed when you actually see it compared to other projectors when they're set up for someone who is a video enthusiast and is looking for accurate color. So I am a big fan of BLU-Escent. Now, the other thing I want to point out is you guys still are continuing with the NX5, correct?
Correct. The NX5 will probably continue through a good chunk of next year. I don't have the exact dates yet, but the NX5 will continue. So
JVC is still offering a unit at right around $6,000. If your budget is smaller, that will still give you outstanding performance and all of the benefits of their video processing and their HDR color, their HDR tone mapping, dynamic tone mapping, all of that stuff at a price that is incredibly affordable. So we have these 3 new models, but remember that there's still, for those people who are getting into JVC, there's still that other D-ILA home theater projector that is quite approachable at $6,000.
Yeah, that one, the NX5 is a great projector. It gives you 40,000 to 1 native contrast. It gives you 1,800 lumens, and at a price tag of $6,000. It's lamp based, and at 1,800 lumens, that's still pretty darn bright, especially if you have a dedicated home theater. It's an amazing looking projector for the money.
When people say, well, what should I buy for my first serious home theater projector, that is definitely one of the ones that we always mention. And then if they say, well, what is it worth it to step up from a NX5 to an NZ7? Oh, yes, it is. Yes, it is, because of the laser light source and the AK eShift and all of those benefits. So speaking of something like a NZ7, we know that it has the laser and the AK eShift. So let's talk a little bit about the AK eShift here, because like I said, that was found on projectors that were far more expensive in JVC's lineup. And there's two versions of it, correct? Can you kind of explain that?
Yeah, absolutely. Essentially, AK eShift was done a few years ago on the NX9 RS3000. Now we're moving, and that technology is still available. It's still available in the NZ7 and our entry-level laser piece. But now we're moving something called eShift X, which essentially it's doubling the axis. It's making all 35 million pixels addressable. So it's actually addressing every single pixel, and it's creating a much sharper, much more amazing picture. And people are saying, "Well, 8K, do I really need that?" Well, it depends how close you're sitting, and it depends how close your screen, how big your screen is. So if you've got a 150-inch screen, yes, you're going to notice a difference between native 4K, 8K, and 8K eShift.
Yeah. So the benefit of higher resolution is you can sit closer to a much larger screen and the image will be clear. So that whole thing about how far away you're sitting, it doesn't apply anymore. Get as big of a screen as you possibly can, and you can sit pretty much as close to it as you want and get it and have as immersive an experience as you want. Now, on top of that, the big important thing is the speed of the device. Like you had mentioned before, 4K 120. So while 8K is a big buzzword when it comes to like TV manufacturers, the thing that people are really enjoying right now is 4K 120 gaming between the Xbox, the PlayStation, as well as the big high-end NVIDIA graphics cards. You can enjoy that super high frame rate, smooth kick butt gaming utilizing this display. So you'll be able to utilize it now. And the nice thing is, I always say, one of my mantras is always buy once, cry once. You can enjoy 4K 120 gaming right now, and then when 8K content comes up, the Super Bowl, the Grammys, the Oscars, the next Olympics, you know that you are ready for it. And the fact that it has the proper inputs, that's another important point. You guys have AK eShift, but the original model, like the RS3000 and the NZ9 had the older generation of eShift, but only had 18 gigabit inputs. So it would take that input that at 4K content, apply some upscaling, and then use eShift to add additional resolution. This now, it still does the upscaling, but it will now, you can now feed it a pure 8K native signal and utilize that as well. So there's two parts to it, a more effective system and the ability to actually accept the signal natively, correct?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
That 8K eShift X, the processor is capable of running twice the speed. So it'll do 8K, it'll do 48 gigabits per second, 8K at 60p or 4K at 120p, because we do need some of that processing power to be able to do the 8K eShift.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, because too,
And
you
it's
have to
great.
eShift and show the frame. So you need to almost have double the speed of the device.
And it's great that it takes native 4K video and turns it into 8K. So it gives you much better resolution that you have even from your original source.
Exactly. And like I said, it's worked really, really well. The RS3000, which uses the older generation eShift, we utilize in our reference theater in my office, in my other office for my other job, and everybody is just amazed at the picture quality. Actually, Rob Buddy came over and actually did a little bit of calibration with one of our reviewers, Cam, a couple of days on it, and it looks even better. So that's something that I love these projectors. Now,
if you don't mind me touching on that, we do offer for all of our projectors, we offer something called AutoCalib. So we have an auto calibration software that you can download for free to do really, really refined fine tuning on your color output. And as long as you have a Spider X with this particular model, you're capable of doing that kind of thing.
exactly,
And it's free.
And it's free. That's the big part, because I have a full CalMan tool set and a Klein and the meters, and you can do a really, really good job with that. But you're talking just on the equipment, you're into it 10, $15,000 with the software. Is it going to be a little better, a little bit more fine-tuned? Yes, it will be. But for the price of a Spider, which is a couple of $100 and free software, you will be amazed at the improvement, because a lot of it has to do with how the projector interacts with your screen in your room. And this makes sure that you get really good color tracking and grayscale and everything else. So it's a really good job, does a really good job of fine tuning it. So it gets you about, I'd say about 95% of the way there from if you were going to get a high-end professional calibration. Should you do it sometimes? Should you still get it calibrated? Yeah, you know, if you're spending close to $20,000, yeah, you should, you know, or even 10. What's $500 to optimize it 100%? But for many customers, right out of the box, the picture's great, and this makes it even better. So I really like it. We've talked about the fact that it has BLU-Escent and that it has the flagship piece has 8K EShift X as well as the native 4K imagers. But the big boy, the NZ9 or RS 4100 also has your premium optics. So can you talk a little bit about these lenses a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. Just a side note for that, NZ8 also has the 8K EShift X, and that the price point on the NZ8 is $14,999.95.
Okay.
So when you step up to the NZ9, now we're using 100mm all glass lens assembly. Now, the other ones have all glass as well, they're 65mm, but the NZ9 uses the 100mm all glass lens assembly. That helps us with a little bit of refinement on the edges of your screen if your screen's very, very large, and it helps us with efficiency. It helps us with light output.
And we can't overemphasize the importance of good optics when it comes to a projector, because especially a 4K projector or an 8K EShift projector, because you're trying, the benefit of that is that imager has all of that detail, and you're trying to get that all of that detail from inside of the box onto your screen, from the middle all the way to the edges. And a lot of projectors will do a really good focus in the middle, but edge to edge, the sharpness is not there. So if I put up a grid pattern for sharp detail, I can see the every single pixel in the middle, but it's a little blurry on the sides. This eliminates that. If you look at optics are, if you're a camera person, it's almost the reverse of a camera. You know, camera, you're trying to get all the detail from outside into the imager. In a projector, you're trying to get all the detail from the imager inside out to the screen. And if you look at those photographers, you can have a cell phone and it has 30 megapixels, but if I take it with a high quality camera with a bigger, better imager and better optics, the amount of detail there is insane. And anybody that's a camera person, if you ask them how much a big lens, big high quality lens costs, it could be the price of a small BMW. So optics are incredibly important, and any photographer will tell you that as well. And you had mentioned, because of this, it does a better job efficiently using all of the light source. So it's brighter. A lot of the brightness differences between something like a NZ9 and an NZ7, a lot of that can be attributed to the lens assembly that is built into that projector, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So at $24,995, you're getting 3,000 lumens. You're getting a 3-chip laser. You're getting 20,000 hours of lamp life. You're getting 4K 120 or 8K inputs, 48 gigabit per second inputs. RAM Adapt HDR. You're everything that you're used to with a JVC projector, and 100,000 to 1 native contrast ratio because of chip grading, and that's essentially how we're getting the difference in contrast between these machines. The very highest performance chips, the ones that are giving us the very, very best output, are the ones that go in the NZ9.
Like I said, you have two series, Precision and you have Reference. And you said the main difference is a little bit of cosmetics and the channels that are sold in. So let's start with the NZ7 RS 2100. It retails for, drum roll please.
Just under $10,000, $9,999.95. You get a native 4K projector with 120p for laser for under 10 grand now.
Which is insane. Okay. Now moving up to the NZ8/RS3100, you get eShift X added to this, as well as some additional brightness and contrast, correct?
Yep,
And
absolutely. Contrast is 80,000 to 1 minimum on that one.
And these units will retail for approximately what?
14,999.
Okay, so right under 15 grand. And then moving up for those people who are looking for the very best, one of the very best home theater projectors that's offered. That's where the NZ9 and the RS4100 comes in for that discerning customer who's really looking for the highest performance. And that unit retails for
just under 25,000, $24,999.95.
Yes, and it's the finest ingredients and the finest components that JVC could possibly put into their projectors. So, Patrick, I am excited about this lineup, and hopefully those people out there as well are also as excited about them as I am. And I'm waiting for my review sample. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? I was bugging Rob about my sample, and I'm going to continue to bug him because I can't wait to see it. So thank you, Patrick, for coming. I really appreciate you spending time with me and my group of viewers talking about your exciting new JVC projectors.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Okay, so thank you, everyone. Take care, and we will talk to you soon.